Imagine being a shy kid from a small town in Puerto Rico, the kind of kid who sings softly in a church choir, then grows up to become one of the biggest music artists on the planet, not by trying to sound like everyone else, but by sounding even more like himself. Now imagine this same person working a regular job bagging groceries, wearing a supermarket uniform, and uploading songs online after work, with no guarantee that anything will happen. And then one day, the world suddenly starts listening. That story still feels a little unreal, even when you already know his name. Because Bad Bunny did not arrive like a perfectly planned celebrity. He arrived like a surprise, like a song you randomly hear once, and then it gets stuck in your head for days. And what I love most is that his rise did not require him to erase his accent, or clean up his personality, or become more polite for the cameras. He became famous while staying unmistakably Puerto Rican, unmistakably emotional, and honestly, sometimes a little unpredictable. So today, let me take you into the true story of Bad Bunny. And while you listen, I want you to notice how English can feel natural when it is connected to a real-life journey, not just textbook sentences. And if you enjoy learning like this, please subscribe, tap like, and share in the comments what part of speaking English makes you feel stuck right now, like pronunciation, confidence, or finding the right words, because I read those and I plan episodes to help you. Bad Bunny was born Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio in Vega Baja, Puerto Rico, in 1994. Vega Baja is not some fantasy celebrity city. It is a real place where people live normal lives, where families know each other, where you grow up with routines and responsibilities, and where dreams can feel far away but also strangely close, because music is everywhere in Puerto Rico. From the beginning, he was surrounded by sound. As a child, he sang in a church choir, which is one of those experiences that can shape you without you noticing it at the time. When you sing in a choir, you learn timing. You learn how to listen, you learn how to control your voice even when you feel nervous. And I always think about language learners when I hear that. Because speaking English is also a little like singing. You do not just talk. You listen, you copy rhythm, you practice even when it feels awkward. And slowly, your voice becomes more confident. As Benito got older, he was not living some glamorous teen life. He was a regular kid with interests, emotions, and a personality that did not always fit into the traditional idea of what a Latin male artist is supposed to be. He liked music, of course, but he also seemed to like privacy. Even today, when he is a global superstar, there is something about him that still feels private, like part of him is still that kid who can disappear into his own world. And that is one reason people connect to him. Fame usually makes people feel far away from us, but he somehow stays relatable. Relatable is a great everyday English word, by the way. Relatable means you feel like you understand them, like their feelings match yours. In his late teens and early 20s, Benito studied at the University of Puerto Rico at Arecibo. But while he was studying, he also worked at a supermarket, bagging groceries. And I want you to hold that image in your mind for a second, because it is powerful. A future world-famous artist, standing there helping customers, doing a job that many people do, probably dealing with tired feet, long shifts, and that feeling of, is this my whole life? And then going home and making music anyway. This is what we call hustle in everyday English. Hustle is not just working hard. Hustle is working hard when nobody is clapping for you yet. Hustle is the behind-the-scenes effort, the unglamorous part. He started uploading music online, especially on SoundCloud. And this is where the modern music story changes everything. Because in the past, you needed huge connections. You needed powerful people to open doors. Now, sometimes your door is your phone and your laptop. But that does not mean it is easy. Uploading songs is simple. Getting people to care is not. Still, he kept posting. He was experimenting with sound, with emotion, with a style that mixed Latin trap, reggaeton, And this honest, sometimes almost messy kind of vulnerability, and eventually one of his songs began to spread. When something spreads online, we often say it blew up. Blew up means it suddenly became famous very fast. Not gradually, suddenly, like a spark hitting dry paper. A key early moment was the song called Soy Peor. That track helped him break through, meaning it helped him cross from unknown to noticed. Breakthrough is a phrase you can use in your own life, too. Maybe you are trying to break through your fear of speaking English. Maybe you want to break through a plateau, that stuck feeling when you are not improving. Benito's breakthrough did not come from being perfect. It came from being consistent and real. As his music started to reach more ears, he connected with producers and people in the industry, including DJ Luian and the Mambo Kings. And once that happened, his career began to take off. Take off is another useful phrase. A plane takes off, right? It leaves the ground. And a career can take off the same way. It means it starts rising quickly. But here is the important part. Even as he was rising, he did not simply copy what was already popular. He had a strange courage to be himself. Sometimes that meant being playful. Sometimes it meant being sensitive. Sometimes it meant being political. Sometimes it meant confusing people, and honestly, that can be a sign that you are doing something new. When you are always easily understood, you might be staying too safe. Bad Bunny did not stay safe. As his popularity grew, he began collaborating with major artists. Collaborations are like powerful bridges. They connect audiences. They create moments. They give an artist a chance to show who they are next to someone already famous. And he did this while still keeping his own flavor. His voice, his accent, his Puerto Rican identity, it was all there. And I love that for language learners because some of you feel pressure to sound American or British to be respected. But your accent is not your enemy. Clarity matters, yes, but your accent is also part of your story. Bad Bunny never tried to erase his voice. He made the world adjust to him. Around 2017 and 2018, he was becoming impossible to ignore. He showed up on huge songs. His name was everywhere, and then in 2018, he released his debut studio album, X100 Pre. And that album was not just popular, it was praised. People took him seriously as an artist, not just a trendy voice. And this is a big difference. Trendy can disappear, respected can last. The album showed range. It showed he could do heartbreak, humor, experiment, and still feel like himself. Then the momentum got even bigger. In 2019, he worked on Oasis with J Balvin, which was a major moment in Latin music. But Bad Bunny's story is not only about music charts, it is also about the time he lived in. Puerto Rico went through intense hardship with hurricanes, economic struggle, political frustration, and he did not stay quiet. He used his platform, meaning he used his fame and attention, to talk about real issues. Platform is a common word now. It basically means your public space, your audience, your influence. In 2020, something happened that truly proved he was not just a star in one lane. He released YHLQMDLG, an album that became a huge cultural moment. The title is an abbreviation in Spanish, and even if you do not know Spanish, you could feel the attitude behind it. That album was full of energy, but also nostalgia. It felt like a party and a diary at the same time, and it performed incredibly well. This was the year when many people around the world were stuck at home and music became emotional support. His songs gave people a way to feel alive. And then, in the same year, he released another album, El Último Tour del Mundo. And here is one of those amazing facts that still feels historic. That album became the first all-Spanish language album to reach #1 on the Billboard 200 chart. Think about that. Not an English album with one Spanish song, not a bilingual project designed to please everyone, an all-Spanish album reaching the top in the United States. That is not just success, that is a shift. It is the culture moving. Now, I want to pause and teach you an everyday phrase that fits perfectly here. People sometimes say he did it his way. His way means he followed his own path, his own style, instead of copying what others wanted. And as an English learner, you can do it your way too. Maybe your way is listening to podcasts while walking. Maybe your way is practicing 1 minute a day instead of forcing 1 hour and then quitting. Consistency beats intensity, and Bad Bunny's life shows that. Bad Bunny also became known for challenging gender expectations in Latin music and fashion. He wore nail polish. He wore skirts in magazine shoots. He played with style in a way that made some people uncomfortable, and for others, it felt freeing. And whether you love every outfit or not, the deeper message was confidence. Not arrogant confidence, but personal freedom. And freedom is a word I want you to feel when you speak English, not perfection. Freedom. The freedom to make mistakes and keep going. There were also moments of pain and controversy in his story because fame is not a gentle thing. Fame is loud. It pulls you in different directions. People watch everything you do and they judge fast. Sometimes he handled things well, and sometimes he got criticized, like any human being living in the spotlight. But overall, he stayed down to earth in a way that surprised people. Down to earth means grounded, not acting superior, still connected to real life. Even when he was selling out arenas, he still talked like someone who remembers where he came from. And then came 2022, the era of Un Verano Sin Ti. That album was everywhere. It became the soundtrack of a whole year. It broke streaming records, and it felt like summer even when it was cold outside. It is one of those albums that does not just play in your headphones. It plays in stores, cars, beaches, everywhere. And here is another amazing fact that says so much about his impact. He became the most streamed artist globally on Spotify for multiple years in a row. That level of dominance is rare, and he did it while staying rooted in Spanish. When something is rooted in something, it means it is deeply connected to it, like a tree. Rooted in Spanish, rooted in Puerto Rico, rooted in his own taste. That is why it does not feel fake. People can sense authenticity. Authenticity means realness. No mask, no forced personality. Now let's talk about his live performances and touring, because that is where an artist's relationship with fans becomes physical and emotional. Touring is exhausting. It sounds glamorous, but it is hard on the body and mind. Different cities, different time zones, constant noise, constant pressure to be amazing every night. But he built a reputation for unforgettable shows, and in 2022 and 2023, his tours became massive events, especially his stadium tour. Stadium tours are the kind of thing only the biggest artists can do. When you stand in a stadium and see thousands of people singing your lyrics back to you, that is not just success. That is connection on a huge scale. And what I find so interesting is that he did not limit himself to music. He stepped into wrestling with WWE, which might sound random, but it actually fits his personality. Wrestling is performance, drama, athleticism, and storytelling. And he took it seriously. He trained, he showed respect, he didn't just show up for attention. That is another good phrase, by the way. To show up means to arrive, but also to be present and try. When you show up for your English practice, even when you are tired, you are building trust with yourself. He also started acting. He appeared in big projects, like Bullet Train, which introduced him to even more global audiences. Acting in another language environment can be intimidating, and even if he was not acting in English the whole time, just being on those sets, working with those teams, is a different world. It shows ambition, not the unhealthy kind, the curious kind, the kind that says, I wonder what else I can do. Now let's be honest. When you become that famous, you also become a symbol. People place expectations on you. They want you to represent an entire culture perfectly. They want you to say the right thing every time. They want you to never mess up. But no human can carry that perfectly. And part of maturity for celebrities and for language learners is accepting that you will be misunderstood sometimes. You will be criticized sometimes. The goal is not to be untouchable. The goal is to keep growing. If you look closely at Bad Bunny's career, one of the biggest patterns is his willingness to experiment. He changes his sound. He changes his look. He changes his mood. Some albums feel like a wild night out. Some songs feel like sadness in a dark room at 2 a.m. That emotional range is why people stay. He is not one note. And you do not have to be one note in English either. You can be calm. You can be funny. You can be serious. You can be thoughtful. English is not a personality. It is a tool that carries your personality. Let me give you a few everyday expressions that connect to his story, and I'll keep it gentle and natural. One is out of nowhere. People say Bad Bunny came out of nowhere. That means it felt sudden, like there was no warning. But the truth is, it only looked like out of nowhere, because most people did not see the years of work. Another expression is behind the scenes. Behind the scenes means the private work that happens before the public result. The late nights, the practice, the rejected songs, the doubts. Another one is to stay true to yourself. That means you do not betray your identity to please others. And if you repeat these phrases in your mind, you will start hearing them everywhere. In movies, interviews, real conversation. Something else that makes Bad Bunny inspiring is how he normalizes being emotional. In some cultures, especially for men, emotions can be treated like weakness, but he built a brand around feeling. Love, jealousy, grief, pride, anxiety, joy, he puts it all in the music. And this is important for language learning too, because emotions help memory. When you learn English through a story that makes you feel something, you remember the words more easily. Your brain holds on to emotional moments. That is why I love teaching like this. And let's not forget the Puerto Rico part, because it is not just a background detail. Puerto Rico is in his voice. It is in the slang, the rhythm, the attitude. He helped push Puerto Rican Spanish and Caribbean Spanish more generally into the global mainstream. He did not soften it to make it easier. He trusted people to catch up. And people did. That is influence. That is cultural confidence. Of course, his life is not perfect. Fame can isolate you. It can make relationships complicated. It can make privacy almost impossible. And there were times when he clearly wanted distance from the public eye. When someone says they want space, it means they want distance to breathe, to think, to feel normal. Space is a simple word, but it is very human. And even if you love an artist, it is healthy to remember they are still a person who needs space. So what can you take from Bad Bunny's story, especially as someone learning English? First, you do not need permission to start. Benito started while working a regular job. He started with what he had. Second, you do not need to sound like everyone else to be understood. Your voice matters. Third, consistency creates momentum. When you do something again and again, even in small steps, you build a path. In English, we say little by little. Little by little means slowly, step by step, without panic. And I want you to repeat that idea in your life, little by little. And maybe the biggest lesson is this: people connect to realness. In English, you might hear someone say, "I like him because he is real." That does not mean perfect. It means honest. When you speak English, do not wait until you are flawless to speak. Speak with the English you have today. Use simple words. Use clear sentences. Let your personality come through. That is how confidence grows. Confidence is not something you find first and then speak. Confidence is something you build by speaking. Bad Bunny's story is still being written. He is still young, still evolving, still surprising people. And maybe that is the point. A life is not one moment. It is a series of moments where you choose to keep going. He went from a choir kid to a supermarket worker uploading songs to a global artist changing the sound of pop music while keeping Spanish at the center of the stage. And if that can happen for him, then your goals, your voice, your progress, they are not too small or too late. Keep showing up, keep listening, keep practicing, and the next time you feel shy speaking English, remember this story and ask yourself a simple question. What if my voice, exactly as it is right now, is the beginning of something bigger?